All right, we are live. Good
Hello,
evening, good
everybody.
afternoon. This is Jess Archer. For those who don't know, how you doing today, Jess? Or this morning on your side of the
This
world?
morning, I'm doing very well this morning. It's a little bit earlier than I would normally want to be up, but that's the price of being an Australian.
Awesome. Yeah, for those in the chat, I know that we usually have people from all over the world. So just let us know where you're tuning in from today. We'll get started here in a little bit, so that we have as many people here as possible before we can get diving into some of these questions. But yeah, where are you watching, listening, tuning in from? We'd love to see all of the different countries, different places in the world that you all are joining us from today.
Where are you joining us from, Josh?
I am joining from the great United States. No, not really. I'm joining from the United States in Arizona. So I am on almost
Okay.
the exact farthest opposite from where Jess is at the moment right now. So I am West Coast. Technically, Arizona has its own time zone. Yeah, so we got Chris Gager from Southern California, Chalky from Nigeria. Hi. Oyvind from Norway. I apologize if I pronounced that correctly. It sounds like I said it really good, but maybe not. Daniel Archer. So any relation, Jess? I
Oh,
don't.
wow. Hey, no, not that I'm aware of.
Another Archer, but joining from Dublin, Ireland. I love it. And then LinkedIn user from New Zealand. I love it.
Someone from
Yeah, great to
Algeria.
see you
Hello.
all. Kelly from Canada. Awesome.
Ghana. Wow.
Ghana.
Everyone's, yeah, everywhere. This
It's
is
awesome.
awesome.
Daniel Archer says, big fan. There we go. Uh,
Thank you, Daniel.
I love that there's just so many people, like even just within like the 10 to 15 different comments that we had like there, it was like probably 10 to 15 different countries. I love
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Hello from the Netherlands. What are how many countries have you been to or visited, Jess? What's your country count?
Oh, okay. I mean, most of them have probably been due to Laracon and Laravel, which is pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So yeah, like getting to go to India twice, purely because of Laravel and Laracon has been pretty amazing. The US, Amsterdam, where else have I been? I've been to Canada. I went to
Oh, there
Canada
you
on
go.
a holiday. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Canada was lovely. Went to Italy.
Okay.
Uh, and then, yeah, when we were in Amsterdam, we got the train to London, which was
Mm.
kind of mind blowing to go in a train that goes like under the water. And so technically, I guess I've been to like Paris and France and all those sorts of places, but never left the train. So I don't know if that really counts, but I felt like it
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's actually, I've probably traveled the most I have this year, mostly just because of Laravel, like speaking at Laravel Live UK. I went to London last week, and then was hi Joshua from the Netherlands. So we got Daniel Archer, and then we got a Joshua in the chat today. So there we go.
Nice.
Ty says, hopefully adding Nightwatch to our massive Laravel project here soon. Massive in quotes. Also excited to be at Laracon for the third year this year. I
Nice.
love it. I'm curious how massive, Ty, because that would be exciting. Hey from Switzerland. Hope you're all good. Hope you're good as well. And then hello from Egypt. And Himanshu, hi from India. Good to see you as well. Awesome. So yeah, we're here today with Jess. Jess, what would you say is your title? I know it kind of gets longer every single time that I talk to you. What is your title at Laravel? What do you do?
So officially, it's engineering team lead for the Nightwatch team.
Awesome.
So that's on paper. In reality, I feel like everyone on my team is a leader. We all
Yeah.
kind of lead and drive the project. We all self-direct. I spend a lot of my time coding still. So I'm the leader on paper, but yeah, we've all driven it. We've all decided where it goes and all that sort of stuff.
That's awesome. And yeah, Nightwatch launched this week. Um,
Sure
and so
did.
that's one of the main reasons why we're here is Jess has been gracious enough to join us. And we have a Reddit post that Jess posted last week. And we have a a bunch of comments on basically just asking what are questions about Nightwatch, about how it's built, how does it work, and most of those questions are also probably before it was even launched, right? So there's a lot of questions that might have been answered now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also for those in the chat, we'll kind of read. And here's like the Reddit AMA comment that we posted in the chat as well. But we'll kind of go through the Reddit comments, the Reddit questions together, and I'll ask Jess those questions and get her wonderful answer for them. But if you have any questions that maybe either apply to what we're talking about or just some good ones that you come up with, let us know as well. But yeah, first off, Jess, how did the launch go? While we're still getting people trickling in, how did the launch go?
Launch went really, really well. So as some people may have seen, we were going to launch the week prior, but we kind of made a decision over that weekend beforehand that we wanted that extra week. We were doing some kind of crazy stuff trying to get multi-region working so people could store their data in EU as well as US and eventually other regions as well. And yeah, we just kind of decided, let's just get another week. And I'm really glad we did, because I think it would have gone from being a really stressful launch to actually being like, can we launch now? Like being excited about launch rather than being stressed about it.
Yeah.
The launch went really, really well. Yeah, I mean, as with any new app, there's random little areas people have hit, but there hasn't been anything kind of really widespread that we've seen. It still kind of blows my mind. I mean, I've never built anything that had this much data flying into it. So there was always this element of like, will it actually be able to handle it? Like we did tons of stress testing and performance testing, but
Okay.
it still kind of felt unknown, right? So yeah, but so far so good.
That's awesome. Yeah, for those in the comments, have you gotten the chance to install Nightwatch, play around with it? How quickly did you blow through the free tier? Let us know in the comments. I already know there's some questions already coming in, but Jess, you mentioned we'll get started right away with some of these Reddit questions, because I think you mentioned this is the biggest application that you've built that is ingesting this much data. And I think for those who watched your Laracon US talk last year, you talked about this tool named ClickHouse, and a lot of questions kind of came in from the Reddit AMA that I wanted to kind of talk through about using ClickHouse for Laravel Nightwatch. So was ClickHouse an obvious choice as an OLAP or OLAP, I guess, or were there a few other options that you investigated?
That's a great question. To start with, I wasn't aware of the term OLAP or OLAP when I first started building Nightwatch. It's a term that I came to learn and wished that I knew earlier. In fact, the premise of my kind of talk in Laracon US was I wanted to teach people that word OLAP existed, because if I'd have known that existed and could search for it, it would have narrowed down like what I was looking for immensely, rather than these kind of vague search things I was searching for. So it wasn't I guess the first obvious choice, because it didn't come across my radar because I didn't know what I was searching for. We did a lot of kind of stress tests and performance tests with things like single store, InfluxDB. But yeah, ended up ClickHouse came across our radar like fairly late, really. But we ran the same sorts of tests on it, and it either was on par or faster with anything else we tried. And it was free and open source. And yeah, just seemed to be like the most cost-effective, fastest way of solving it. It kind of ticked every single box.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, and for those who are watching in after every question, Jess is probably going to try to post the answer to Reddit. So just bear with her as she's kind of, because she's answering all these questions live for.
Glad you reminded me to do that.
I'm like, okay, do that now, Jess. That's awesome. That's when Jess talked about ClickHouse at Laracon last year, that was the first time I had heard of it, and so it was awesome to be able to hear from that. But some of you in the chat said you already installed Nightwatch. Khalidi said, yeah, very fast, like 2 to 4 minutes. I was in. I love it. It's super fast to get up. 3 apps using Nightwatch already. Fantastic. Nice. I love it. Burhan, hello from Pakistan. Gilmar, hello. Awesome.
Hello.
Next question, Jess. What was the DX for interfacing with an OLAP DB in Laravel like for the team? Is it just a lot of raw SQL?
So we use this. There's like a Laravel package for ClickHouse that is basically just a wrapper around this PHP SDK for interfacing with ClickHouse, but it adds like a query. It makes it work with Laravel's query builder. So for the most part, we can use Laravel Query Builder. We don't use Eloquent with ClickHouse because Eloquent's kind of more for like an ORM where you're dealing with like individual models, whereas we're dealing with like these massive aggregations. But using the Query Builder is still kind of the nicest way I find to write queries, especially when you've got a lot of conditional logic you want to chuck in there. But there is still a lot of raw stuff, mostly just in the select part of the statement. So we do select raw, and then everything else, the from, the wheres, the group bys, they all tend to just be standard sorts of stuff. We do order by raw because ClickHouse has this awesome feature called order by with fill, and it'll fill in data for graphs. So if you've got a graph and you want to show like 1 point for every minute of the last hour, but there was only like 3 data points in the data set, it'll fill out all the rest of those points with like null or empty values. So yeah, I had to use some raw in the order by part, but we don't have any queries that are like completely raw, the whole thing, other than like database migrations.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And that kind of goes along with this, or you kind of already answered this, but is there any chance that, in the sense that you weren't writing Eloquent within ClickHouse, was there any chance that we could see a release of a native ClickHouse Eloquent driver then?
I just don't like for Eloquent specifically, like if we're differentiating between like the Laravel database and query builder and then Eloquent specifically, Eloquent being like the ORM, I don't know that ClickHouse is what I would use with an ORM because like an ORM is more like, inserting individual rows, reading them back out, creating relationships, updating and deleting them. ClickHouse doesn't really want you to update or delete rows. It's very much like an insert only for performance. Like you can do it, but it's like this bigger mutation. So yeah, no plans for it. And but in terms of using it with Query Builder, yeah, there is already a great open source package out there. I think I had a few PRs into it to fix a few little things that we needed. So probably not a first party one anytime soon, but I don't know. I would love to. There are little bits and pieces I'd love to improve. It's just a case of finding the time and choosing where to spend it.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, thanks for answering that. Yeah, we'll let Jess put in those answers as well. But yeah, those joining us right now, we are kind of going through the Reddit AMA that Jess kind of had posted last week. There's a ton of questions there that we'll dive into. But if you have any questions in the chat, let us know as well. That way we can get those answered too. We have a ton of questions in this whole document that we've put together from the Reddit AMA. But so we'll try to get to as many as possible today, but Jess will post all the answers, even the ones we didn't get to on the stream as well. We got a couple questions in the chat. So is there any plans for creating Nightwatch as a desktop application? And I guess a follow-up question to that would be why or why not? Like, what do you envision for that?
That's an interesting one. I think this is the first time anyone's asked this question, which is
I think so. Cool. At least that I've seen.
So certainly no plans. It wasn't anything on my radar. I don't know what it would bring that like the web app doesn't, and it would just basically connect to it. Probably not, but like you could create one in like one of those web view kind of things where it really just is the web app and it just loads it in there if you kind of want to have it as like a desktop icon, like, like in the dock or whatever. I don't know. It could be like a community thing people build. I love how many things people have built for Forge. Like raycast things and all sorts of stuff like that, menu bar stuff. So I'd love to see some of those sorts of things for Nightwatch. If we don't get to them, hopefully someone else will.
Yeah, great. And then a couple questions about Octane. I know Laravel Octane isn't currently supported. Is that correct? So if it's working with Laravel Octane, it's not currently supported. Let me know if that's wrong, Jess. But then another question, is there an ETA on when Octane support will be out?
So that is correct. It's honestly pretty straightforward for us to do. There's just been so many little bits and pieces that it kind of like, multi-region support, more advanced filtering and sampling options, all those sorts of things. So it was kind of always sitting at like near the top of the list, but a few extra little things we were getting in first. But I think, I would hope we could get it knocked out next week, hopefully. I don't, like, not committing to it or anything, and it'll be kind of more up to Tim McDonald on that one, because he's kind of the expert on the agent side of things. But we made it work with Laravel Pulse, so we kind of already know what we need to do. We've just got to hook in the right places, and more importantly, like, unhook in the right places, because we don't get the benefit of the whole app getting torn down on every request. So we've got to make sure that we kind of release all the memory and all those things, and don't kind of build a memory leak up. So we just want to make sure we get it right before we put it out there.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, thanks so much everyone for asking the questions. I'll kind of try to pick as many questions as I can from the comments, but then we're also trying to get through the Reddit questions as well. So just bear with us, but we appreciate it. Keep them coming as well. But yeah, Jess, next question. We're kind of still in this, like, the framework infrastructure side of Nightwatch. Is there any plans to support open telemetry for the framework and Nightwatch as the dashboard?
That's a good question. So open telemetry comes up quite a lot. It's something we looked into in terms of using it like behind the scenes for Nightwatch, but we kind of decided not to for that. In terms of like exposing the data we have in open telemetry format and maybe adding things to the framework, it does feel like it's a standard that's starting to kind of get, more and more use and all those sorts of things. So there's definitely a chance that it will happen. At Laravel, we don't tend to want to like jump on bandwagons like straight away for things that might kind of come and go. We want to make sure things are kind of really well established. I think OpenTelemetry has been around for a while, but it's one of those things that maybe for me, it feels like it's gaining in popularity because it's still fairly new to me, and now I'm getting a lot of questions about it. But it's definitely on the cards, but not in the current plan right now.
Yeah, and I guess like a question that kind of comes along with that is, would love to know if this is using open telemetry for logs, metrics, and traces behind the scenes. But it sounds like you pretty much said it doesn't, because you're using something a little bit lower level or low.
Yeah. So we did look into it. ClickHouse has like a great kind of blog post and documentation on how to use ClickHouse to store open telemetry data. It's great. It's really structured. It's an awesome format, but we also kind of found it a little bit, I guess, restrictive in some ways. We knew exactly what data we wanted to collect. We kind of wanted to be able to optimize the database really specifically. And when you've got a more generic kind of format like that, you have to make some trade-offs to get the flexibility that it provides. And so we kind of felt that for our use case, building something really specific for Laravel, that, it just kind of made more sense. But it's something we can always switch to it later. Like, that's kind of the great thing about our infrastructure, is we can kind of change how things work and cut between different, streams coming in and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Thank you. Let me dive into some of these questions in the comment while Jess posts those or posts those answers to Reddit. Pure multitasker right there. But I guess this is a great one from Emmett. I'll answer me, and then maybe we can get Jess's answer after she's done posting. But what is your favorite use case for Nightwatch? My personal favorite use case, again, just in the limited amount of time that I've been able to play around with it, I don't have as in-depth of knowledge as Jess, but my favorite use case is seeing users linked to specific requests and events, in the sense that my support user first DevRel type mind, I love being able to be like, oh yeah, like this affects 40 users, and it's I also love seeing like the time, like a specific query, for example, has been, even if it's only lasts for 2 seconds, I love seeing the total time that has been spent across all users for that particular query. So I guess that's not really a use case, I guess, for me, but what is your favorite use case, Jess, for Nightwatch?
I guess what it's kind of meant to do, right? Like, monitor your application specifically for like errors, like exceptions and performance issues. I kind of like that that data's kind of all there together. So you can just kind of see problems in general rather than necessarily having to go in and think like, I'm looking for errors right now, or I'm looking for performance issues. I like how on our like issues page, we can kind of like surface those up there, and then you can kind of dive into them, and something might have been an exception, but being able to see the timeline of everything that happened and the timings of those things still becomes like really helpful. So yeah, I mean, I guess like debugging problems is my favorite use case. We use it for Nightwatch itself. So being able to kind of see where queries that maybe locally run pretty fast, but once we get like even more data in there, get slower. So being able to find that is really, really useful. And just being able to like track down errors, see how many people are impacted by them, and kind of like where they came from, how they triggered it, all those sorts of things.
Awesome. I love it. Back to some of the Reddit questions. From what I understand, Nightwatch is mostly built from scratch instead of leveraging existing technology like Prometheus and Grafana or OpenTelemetry. What was the rationale behind this? And I guess it kind of flows into that OpenTelemetry question. You kind of already answered this for the most part, but what would you add to this?
I guess like Prometheus and Grafana, like we use Prometheus and Grafana for Nightwatch, like to monitor our infrastructure. So they're like Grafana is like a great tool for making like your own custom dashboard for your own kind of custom infrastructure. For Nightwatch, we didn't want to make like we wanted to make our own custom thing that was specifically tailored for that, rather than kind of putting that on the user to like construct their own thing. We wanted something that just out of the box tells you all the things you want to know. So in some ways, I almost wish that for our infrastructure, there was a package we could have installed that was just like a one-stop shop. You just set it up, and then it just tells you all the important stuff there. But we had to roll that out ourselves. James, our infrastructure engineer, spent a lot of time kind of tweaking those and setting up all the alerts and all that. So yeah, we wanted to build something really tailor-made for Laravel, and they just didn't feel like the right tools for the way we wanted to build it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess along those lines, we had another Reddit question come up that was saying, why not using Nightwatch as like a source for something like Grafana, so you have one tool to have all Laravel information. Do you think something like that might be possible in the long run, or is that something that's not even in the cards in a lot of ways?
I think it would be on the cards to like expose Nightwatch data in OpenTelemetry format for people to kind of consume into other things. I can't imagine it would ever kind of replace the dashboard in terms of like what it shows you. But if you wanted to just kind of put some high level stuff on a dashboard, along with like other things like unrelated to your application specifically, like more about your infrastructure and that, like it could be cool to kind of pull some of those bits and pieces out. So I could see us adding that. But I think you'll always still want to come back to the Nightwatch dashboard to actually dig in and diagnose once you're aware that there's a problem. So we want to make sure that people can find out about all the times they should be going to the dashboard. And so, yeah, exposing that sort of stuff makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. Thank you. Jess is going to put those answers into the Reddit. Let me take a look at the comments real quick. Sam asked, what's the best route coming from JavaScript background getting into Laravel? There's probably a couple of different ways you could go, Sam. A lot of people who are comfortable with maybe like React or Vue, our starter kits are a great way to kind of see how that exists within a Laravel framework and ecosystem. But yeah, let us know if there's anything that you would like to see specifically within that realm as well. Marcos says, question, hello, I'm here just to mention NeoVim. So good to see you, Marcos. I feel like you were in our last chat with Jess when we did Nightwatch before it was even launched. I think with the same question, if that makes sense.
Potentially, yeah. So like a huge chunk of Nightwatch, both the dashboard and the agent, was written in NeoVim because, well, Vim and NeoVim. So I use NeoVim, Tim uses Vim.
Really? Okay.
And also our infrastructure engineer, James, he also uses Vim. So there's 3 of us out of 7 on the team that use NeoVim or Vim.
Yeah. And I don't know the stats across like all of Laravel, but I feel like it doesn't increase that much. Yeah.
No.
That's awesome. Abdelatif, we already kind of had mentioned this as well, but Octane support is probably coming soon. There's no specific date,
Yes.
but soon as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Can you please shed some light on data collection? We have fintech application with a lot of ISO compliance, but I'd love to convince my client to allow using a Nightwatch.
Great question. There's so many aspects to this sort of stuff. So we are currently pursuing SOC 2 for Nightwatch. I'm not sure when that's going to be finalized, but that's kind of a big part of it. We currently allow 2 different storage locations, so US and EU, and we plan on expanding that fairly soon. And then just adding in the ability to kind of redact bits of information if you don't want it to send through. There's a lot of stuff we already don't capture, like query bindings, request bodies, and all those sorts of bits and pieces. So there's a lot of the places where certain bits of information might appear, we kind of don't capture. But if you're writing like raw database queries, then things like that could get in there. I don't know the specifics of the compliance for the fintech application. I more know in the terms of like medical sides of things. But yeah, it's definitely, we're trying to pursue as many of those sorts of things as we can to make sure people can use Nightwatch.
Yeah, I love it. Another quick question from the comments. Will Nightwatch support error tracking logging for the front end JavaScript side too?
That is our plan for sure. That's, I've said it before, but I think that's like the biggest thing that we're missing, is the ability to kind of, especially when you're using something like Inertia or Livewire that have those like, JavaScript parts built into your application. We definitely want to handle that. It's a little bit more kind of crazy in the JavaScript world in terms of catching errors and the like lack of structure in them, and also getting them from like the front end like into our database. So there's some challenges there, but it's something we plan on very actively pursuing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Let's go ahead and jump. I know that some of these questions from the Reddit were, again, before we had launched Nightwatch. And so I wanted just to kind of get some of these pricing questions out of the way before we jump back into the infrastructure piece as well. And some of you sneaky people on Reddit actually had found our marketing sites before they were actually public. So we have a lot of diehard Laravel
fans. Thanks for posting that.
Yeah, we monitor everything, but maybe not as quickly. But so how much does it cost? How much does it cost?
So it starts free. We have a free plan that includes 200,000 events. And so for some apps, you might be able to get away with that, especially if you use sampling. We strongly recommend using sampling for pretty much every use case. It's part of the onboarding flow when you sign up. Is we kind of tell you there's a little thing that helps you choose and configure your sample rates for various things, and that can get you a lot further. So free to start. You can add additional events as well. So even if you're in the free plan, you could add an extra 500,000 events if you wanted. If you didn't want to kind of jump up to the first paid plan, you can still kind of almost customize your own plan. And so then we have our Pro plan. I'm going to have to make sure I get the numbers right here. Pro plan, I believe, is $20 and includes, I can't remember, I'm sorry. I'm going to open this up and I can do this properly. So, all right, our Pro plan, $20 a month, and that includes 5 million events. We then have our team plan, which is $60 a month, and that includes 20 million events. And our business plan is $300 a month, and that includes 120 million events. And as I said, all of those, you can add additional events on. You can basically set a budget. So you don't have to like prepay by this block of events. You just set a budget that you want to go up to. So I think on the business plan, you can go up to 1 billion events. And if you need even more than that, contact us. We can work stuff out if your needs are even higher than that.
Awesome. And then you kind of already mentioned it, but just there was another Reddit question that said, will there be a free version? And so, yes, there is,
Sure
which is
is.
awesome. I'm curious how as you're as you're preparing to answer those on Reddit, what was the process in deciding that there was going to be a free version?
It's a tough one. It's something we kind of went backwards and forwards with quite a lot. We wanted to make sure that people were kind of incentivized to try it out, that we didn't have these kind of barriers there. We also can't make it give you so much for free that no one ever wants to upgrade, because we spend a lot of effort making this thing. So we obviously need to be profitable. But yeah, it was really nice to be in a position where we could offer a free tier and have a pretty decent amount of events on it for people to kick the tires on it. We talked about doing free trials, all those sorts of things, but I think having just a free forever kind of plan made a lot of sense. I've always enjoyed when there's, I can just install something real quick on like a side project, and then as it grows, I can then kind of, justify paying for something. But it's nice in those early days to be able to just chuck something on there. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks so much for answering that. As you post those answers, let me take a look at the comments here again. Hey everyone, glad to have you here. Jess is kind of answering all of the questions from the Reddit AMA. She might not get to all the questions live here in this stream, but she will post all the answers afterwards as well. But hopefully we'll be able to take some of your questions as well. Boom says, my favorite use case is getting that matrix feeling of having all sorts of colors and data on the screen. It really is pretty, huh? when you jump in and then there's just green and red and darkness and everything else just all over the place.
At some point I'll have to share some screenshots of the first version that I kind of designed. Designed is a very loose term, but I basically was doing proof of concepts, and I put some stuff on the page, and I literally just used Tailwind Pros to do some tables.
Okay.
So it's very white, very loud. And I just put so much information on the page. It was overwhelming, but I wanted to see what was possible. And it's kind of funny now looking at those screenshots and then looking what Jeremy, our designer, created. It's come a long, long way.
I love it. I love it. I think Jeremy had shared early screenshot versions, or someone did on Twitter. I saw someone a light version, and then what it looked like.
Yep.
What it looked like
yep.
today.
That might be the one. Yeah.
Muhammad, hi from Syria. Glad to have you here. Marcos, NeoVim Nightwatch win.
What does that even mean?
It's maybe
NeoVim Nightwatch.
A Nightwatch NeoVim theme. Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Nightwatch NeoVim theme. That would be cool.
Allison, good to have you here. Hello. Is Nightwatch deployed on Forge or Cloud? Wow, that's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. We really wanted, I think the very first version we did on Forge, because that was kind of the tool we knew. We wanted to do it on Cloud, but the timing didn't kind of work out. Cloud wasn't kind of ready at the stage we were kind of building stuff. So the dashboard itself is actually managed with, it's on ECS using Terraforms and all the things on Amazon. So it doesn't actually use Forge or Cloud, but I'd be kind of keen to move it over to Cloud now that we can. But it's one of those things that, it wasn't kind of ready at the time. And then we've now gone all this way. There are so many benefits we have on ECS because there's so much of our other infrastructure that it all ties into. So we've got, Kafka streams and Lambdas and all these other things for our data ingest side of things. So having it all be managed through Terraform is really good. So I don't think Cloud has Terraform support yet. So maybe I'll wait and bug them and see if we can get that, and then and maybe we can switch over.
There you go. Yeah, that's really how all the products get better behind the scenes, is because everyone needs specific things for that Forge or Vapor or Cloud needs to support, and then all of a sudden it's okay, we'll just build it.
So can we have a look at that question again? Because I think there might be another way to answer it as well. Is Nightwatch deployed on Forge or Cloud? That could also mean Cloud or Forge using Nightwatch as well. So is Nightwatch deployed on there's two meanings there. So in terms of answering it in the other way as well, both Forge and Cloud are using Nightwatch. So Forge is the very first thing we ever put on Nightwatch. It was on there from the very early days, and that was kind of our testing ground. And Cloud is also now being monitored by Nightwatch as well. So we use it a lot internally. And Nightwatch also monitors itself, and we use it every day. It's really confusing sometimes when you're like thinking about, like, especially we use staging to monitor production and production to monitor staging, because it's not that great if they're monitoring themselves. So yeah, it gets a little bit confusing when you're like, well, what am I logging into to look at what? And I'm using the tool to debug the tool. Yeah.
Yeah. It can get, there's a lot of different processes running all at the same time. And you're like, oh, I'm using Nightwatch to debug Nightwatch at this point.
Yeah.
I love it. Is on-premise data storage planned? Can we use our own database to store Nightwatch data?
No plans for that. I think this is the first time anyone's asked this one. So probably not. If there's enough demand for it, like potentially, I could imagine like maybe some custom, like dedicated infrastructure for individual customers, maybe if they have those sorts of needs. Yeah, not sure.
Awesome. Yeah.
Something to maybe explore.
Seems like it's a very niche use case, but as with almost everything, if there's enough niche use cases, then it makes sense.
Exactly.
Are alerts to Slack available?
Not currently. We did kind of plan on shipping with that, but as I said before, there were so many other things we were trying to get out the gate. But we definitely want to have alerts to Slack. The plan is to create like webhook alerts, so you can basically set up anything you want, and then kind of have some like first-party ones ready to go out of the box, like Slack and maybe Telegram and stuff like that. So yeah, coming soon. Watch this space.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. In terms of features and capabilities, I know that there's a bunch of different Reddit questions about that. So why don't we dive through some of these and see how many we can get through. And again, for those in the chat, I'm trying to keep up with as many questions as possible, and I'll try to bring them up on the screen for Jess to answer as well. But yeah, glad to have you all here. We're trying to get through Reddit questions as well as your questions, just to talk about Laravel Nightwatch with the one and only Jess Archer. But yeah, glad to have you here. Make sure you like, you subscribe, so that way we can continue to put out this information, this work as well. But yeah, what monitoring tools am I probably using now that Nightwatch can replace? So that's one of the questions from Reddit. What monitoring tools am I probably using now that Nightwatch can replace?
That's a good question. So Nightwatch kind of has, I think of them as like three pillars of things that it does. So it's got the exception tracking, the performance monitoring, and it's also like application logging. So you could replace, if you have another tool that's already doing that, you could replace those with Nightwatch. There's kinds of, I guess, places where other tools may go like a lot deeper in a very specific thing. If like there's a tool that's specifically designed for logging, they've gone all out on logging, and if you really need those like extended features. But if you kind of just need, you know, some standard logging and you want the benefits of having that in the same platform as your other data where everything's all linked together, then you can probably replace those. And for all of the pillars that we have, we want to continue expanding on them and making them, you know, more feature rich as well. So yeah, if you're using any of those tools that cover any of those pillars, then you can certainly give Nightwatch a go, and you could also use Nightwatch in tandem with those as well.
Awesome. I love it. With kind of along those similar lines in terms of like monitoring kind of tools, but then also like capabilities. One of the questions that we had here on Reddit is, what are the logging capabilities? So does Nightwatch handle log aggregation? Can I view my supervisor, Nginx, and Laravel logs all in one place?
So not at the moment. It's application level logs only. So it works as a log driver, the same as any other log driver in Laravel. You can have it as your single log driver, or you can use it as part of a stack. But yeah, it's just Laravel application logs at this point. We could maybe extend it at some point, but Nightwatch is really focused on application level monitoring rather than like all of the rest of the infrastructure side of things, at least at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll let you post those on Reddit. Let me take a look at the chat real quick. Emmett said Taylor just tweeted that Nightwatch helped improve performance on cloud. Yes. Yeah, I think it's just pretty recently that cloud is now on or using Nightwatch. And it's crazy how much you can uncover in just a short amount of time. I can't imagine all the things that the Forge team has uncovered in the I don't know, like what has it been? 6 months that Forge has been on Nightwatch. It seems like it's been probably
Maybe
not that long.
Longer. I feel like it might be longer. It's been on there for like really early days. It was one of our goals to get it on there as soon as possible.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. Is there light mode support? Ducks from Evan.
There is not currently light mode support. No need to duck. We have designs for it, and they are very, very pretty and beautiful. It's just a case of kind of implementing it, and then once you have like multiple modes, then that does kind of slow down a lot of other things because testing now has to happen across light mode and dark mode, all those sorts of things. So it's definitely something we want to add. And yeah, we've already got the designs for it, so hopefully you won't be too far away. But there's other things that we probably will prioritize ahead of that.
Awesome. Boom says free tier sounds awesome. It is fantastic. For the free tier of Nightwatch, if the 200,000 event cap is reached, what's the experience? Do we get more event space each day as we pass the retention period? I think I know the answer to this one, Jess, but I'll let you answer it as well.
Sure. So once you reach the cap, Nightwatch will stop ingesting data. So if the Can you still hear me?
Okay, we can still hear you now. I can hear you now.
I can hear me now? Where did my camera go?
We lost your camera.
That's the wrong one.
Yep.
Where's my other one? This one. That's better.
Perfect. There we go.
So I don't know what happened there. Free tier. So yeah, once you reach the 200,000, Nightwatch will stop ingesting data. The agent will kind of get a response back from our ingest infrastructure that says, hey, you've run out. It'll keep checking in to see if it's allowed to send more, if you've upgraded your plan or added more event allowances. And then the 200,000 will get reset at the start of the next month from, we do kind of like anniversary months. So if you signed up on the 15th of the month, then the 15th of the next month, your quota will reset back to 0, and then you've got a fresh 200,000. But yeah, as I said before, you can also add additional events on there if you would like to. Yeah, add an extra 500,000 if you needed to for that month. And yeah, if you don't use all of that, like I think we charge in blocks of 100,000 events. So yeah.
Perfect. I love it. I don't know if I understand this question by Mohammed. Laravel support the ETL process. I don't know if you know what that means, Jess.
So that's extract, transform, load. Okay. It's I believe I got that wrong, right? It's basically like a process of when you've got data coming in, the manipulations and stuff you do to it before it goes into the database. So in terms of Laravel supporting it, I'm a little bit confused about that. We kind of do a little bit of that ourselves with Nightwatch, but I don't know that. I'm not really sure what it means for Laravel to support it, though.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry about
that. What about permissions for teams or team members? What does that look like currently? What is it going to look like in the future?
Sure. So at the moment, the access controls are at the organization layer. So you can add people to the organization and you can give them a role of admin or collaborator. We don't have like teams beneath that sort of level. So if you're a member of the organization, you can see all of the applications within that organization. You can, of course, add new team members, all those sorts of things. So yeah, we potentially will expand on that later. More roles, maybe more fine-grained stuff, the ability to create teams within organizations, potentially. We'll have to see what folks kind of need and what people are asking for.
Perfect. Before we get back into some of the Reddit questions that have kind of come up, I just have a couple questions, two right back to back, one on YouTube, one on Twitter. But when can I delete one of my applications? Love the product, congrats. And then someone also said, what's the reason behind that you can't delete an application / environment?
So deleting applications, actually, like, it's on my to-do list, and I don't know why I didn't actually get around to implementing that before we shipped, but we can add that pretty quickly. It's kind of one of those features that wasn't like launch critical. It's like when people ask for it, like we can quickly build it in there. We didn't want to like delay launch any longer. You can archive environments, and so that's kind of, I guess, like, yeah, if you don't need that environment anymore, it won't appear in your list of environments anymore, and it will stop ingesting data. And all of the data, once it falls out of your retention period, the data's gone and deleted. So yeah, we'll add the ability to delete applications.
Yeah, it's one of those things where
why would you want to?
Yeah, you don't need to. You just keep it there the whole time. No, but I love it. We'll go back to some of the Reddit questions again. Those joining, thanks so much for joining. We're kind of going through a bunch of Reddit questions that have been posted on the Reddit AMA for Jess, and so behind the scenes, Jess is also posting the answers to those, and we're trying to get through as many as possible. But again, trying to answer your questions as well. Some multi-tenancy questions that came up on Reddit. Does it have multi-tenancy support, and can I give clients restricted access to it? So I guess this means more in terms of kind of like the organization level in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so yeah, multi-tenancy can kind of mean a lot of things. In terms of giving clients restricted access, as I was saying before, it's all controlled at the organization layer at the moment. So if you have maybe you've got an agency and you've got lots of different clients, you could set up a separate organization for each client and invite them to just that organization. And you can belong to all of those organizations yourself, so you can kind of switch between them. You can see them all in your app selector up the top there, so you don't have to kind of change organizations and then go find the application. It's kind of, we've tried to make it really easy to switch between applications in different organizations. So that would be the way to give clients just access to their application or applications by giving them a dedicated organization.
Perfect. And then another multi-tenancy question that came up, but a different form of it. Does it have specific monitoring features for a multi-tenancy Laravel application?
I wouldn't say there's anything like specific for monitoring a multi-tenancy Laravel app. We expose the database connection. So if you're using different database connections, you'll be able to see like which connection a particular query ran on. There's the ability to customize how user information is captured. So by default, we capture the username and their name just using Laravel standard name property. But if you're using different things, you can customize those. And if you wanted to, you could customize it so that their name gets reported with like their tenant ID appended to the end of their name, or the organization they belong to, or even like the subscription plan they're on, anything like that. So you can kind of append additional information in there. And we do want to explore adding some more kind of segmentation features where you could maybe like tag data as belonging to a specific tenant and be able to filter by that, because that's probably the main thing that's missing, is the ability to filter to a specific tenant. So yeah.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thanks so much for answering those. I'll let Jess post the answers to those on Reddit. Let me take a look at these comments. Let's see. Laravel Octane, looks like that's a pretty popular comment. Yeah, Taliesin, Jess had mentioned that Laravel Octane is probably really high next on the list for the whole team. So no ETA on when it's going to be released, but probably really soon. Let's see. Hello, Yvonne. Nice to have you. You asked if we can have a live demo. Probably not today. We do have a bunch of different videos on the on the Laravel channel that you can take a look at, mostly just because we have looks like a ton of questions from everyone, so we want to make sure we answer as much as possible, as well as the Reddit questions. Funny enough, as Jess is posting those answers to Reddit, I took a look through all the Reddit questions, and there were not only people in this YouTube chat who were asking about light mode, but there was two other questions about light mode in Nightwatch. So I don't know. It's funny. So Jess, are you a dark mode or light mode code user then?
I think it's probably pretty obvious based on the theme of the product, but yeah, I definitely dark mode all the way here.
But was the first version of Laravel Nightwatch, was it light mode or dark mode?
Well, the first one was technically light mode because it was just literally just shoving data on a page, and the browser by default renders a white background. So yeah, I guess the first version was technically light mode. But yeah, it's definitely something we want to add. Like I fully get it. No shame on anyone for the theme they choose or anything. Light mode makes a lot of sense, and there are, yeah, like someone was talking about, like in the daylight, it's harder to see it if there's a lot of glare. Yeah. Totally understand, and yeah, definitely keen to add it. It does kind of look a bit funny when you see it in light mode.
Really?
When you're so used to it being like in dark mode and being, and it's called like Nightwatch and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of funny to see it, but it looks really, really good. So I'm looking forward to when we can launch that.
No, I can imagine. It's funny. I switch very frequently between light mode and dark mode. Usually all my browser stuff is in light mode. Like most sites that I visit, I prefer them in light mode. But then my code editor, I'll swap back and forth between dark mode and light mode, depending on the day. It's not even like, oh, nighttime I'm dark mode, daytime I'm light mode. Just usually depends on my mood, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I tried light mode for code at one point, but it's just so hard to find a theme that like sits well with you. Like even dark mode themes, I've gone through so many that like there was all those little things. And so I'm really happy with my current theme. And when I tried to go light mode ones, there was always like, it's just that hunt for the perfect one. And I didn't quite find it, but maybe one day.
I don't think I
love the idea of switching. Theme. I love the idea that like during the day, you use light mode, and then at nighttime you use dark mode.
Yeah, there was one time when I used light mode in a couple of videos, and people were very upset because they're like, "Oh, like all of a sudden
It's such a polarizing.
Pure, yeah.
It used to be like tabs versus spaces, and then that seems to have like gone away a lot, and now it's like light mode versus dark mode.
Awesome. For those in the chat, are you a dark mode or light mode user for your code editor specifically? And then we'll say if you prefer dark mode or light mode for Nightwatch. We'll go with that next. But some comments.
Someone said sepia mode when, and then I realized it was Jeremy, who's literally the designer. So sepia mode when you build it, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's up to you, Jeremy. Awesome. Some questions from the chat. Will you be able to add features to filter the ingested data, like skip certain jobs or mails? I actually heard this question a lot when I was at Laravel Live UK. People wanted, like a specific route parameter that they wouldn't want ingested, but every other route. So I know that this is very commonly asked. I would imagine you probably are already thinking about this.
Definitely, yeah. So we're currently working on route-based filtering. The general kind of philosophy is if the route or the request that comes in is kind of picked for sampling, then everything that happens inside it, generally we want to capture it. So we don't like let you choose things like sample rates individually on each metric type, because then you'd end up with this situation where like requests get sampled, but only like a handful of like the queries and stuff do. So the sampling side of things is always done at the kind of execution layer, the request or the command. In terms of filtering, as I said, we're working on route-based filtering. We also are working on the ability to filter specific events. So let's say we already have the ability to completely disable events. So if you don't want to collect cache information, you can turn that off completely. And we're planning on extending that so you can do like more fine-grained filtering. Like maybe you don't want to capture certain keys, like certain cache keys, or certain mail or jobs, all that sort of stuff. So that's all coming.
Awesome. I love it. Another great question. What's the tech stack behind Nightwatch? I know you talked about ClickHouse, but what else powers it? And like maybe how is Nightwatch the dashboard
Yeah.
built?
So the tech stack is Laravel. It's the
Surprise.
dashboard is 100% Laravel. We use Inertia with React and TypeScript for the front end side of things. And then the kind of the ingest infrastructure is where things get like a lot more kind of custom. So we're using Lambdas for our endpoints behind like API gateway, and then the data all goes onto Kafka streams, which then gets ingested into ClickHouse using a service of theirs called ClickPipes, which basically lets you ingest data from all different sources into ClickHouse tables. And then we use tons of ClickHouse features, aggregating tables, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, but the dashboard is 100% Laravel, and yeah, as you'd expect, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's no surprise there. But yeah, it's always cool to see how. My favorite thing is like I think Nightwatch specifically is one of those applications that it's cool to show people what's possible within Laravel in the
Yeah.
sense of, I think cloud is the same way as well. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, at the end of the day, like it's the front end stuff and the back end stuff. There's no difference than any other modern tooling like out there, kind of thing. So I'm excited to show people. My favorite thing is still, and I think you showed it to me the last stream that we did, where you could click and drag and like zoom in based on that. That's still
On the
my
graphs,
favorite thing.
yeah.
Oh yeah, by far. Another question here is, when using an API key auth instead of normal login, Nightwatch seems to guess the user or assign a random one instead of using the real session user. So I'm curious behind the of how I guess the auth is working. Would that be something that we could dive into with support, or is that intended in that way?
Yeah, I mean I'd have to dig into that one. We use Laravel's kind of standard auth events for detecting when the particular like session is logged in, so we can attribute the user to it. There's some really kind of interesting stuff that Tim built, so that if you like specifically for like a login request, where when the request comes in, you're technically a guest and you become authenticated partway through that request, and we still want to attribute that to the user. So there's this kind of lazy resolving of the user that gets delayed until the end of the request to see what user ended up getting logged in. So in terms of the API key auth, if it was using like standard kind of Laravel stuff with Sanctum, I would have expected that to work. I can't imagine any scenario where it would ever guess the user or assign a random one. Like there's no code that would just go pick a random one. I wonder whether there wouldn't be something even bleeding through from another request, like unless you were doing it with Octane. And yeah, as I said, we don't like properly support Octane. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I reckon, maybe Tim and I can dig into that. You're muted. Well, I can't hear you, so.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. Yeah, let us know if you continue to see that happen. We can dig into that as well. Does Nightwatch slow down the app? And so I think this is a common question usually of like, okay, how does that work? And will my users now see this slow performance because I'm sending things to Nightwatch?
Yeah. So, I mean, a performance tool wouldn't be very good if it made your app slow, right? Like that's kind of the complete opposite of the reason you would install it. But any monitoring tool will add some performance overhead. Like it's kind of not really possible to hook in and listen to stuff without impacting it in some small way. But we've done a lot of work on keeping that as minimal as possible. We run it on Laravel Forge, which has billions of events flying at us every month. And we haven't noticed any kind of negative performance impact on that. There's a few things we do. So during the request lifecycle, it listens to it captures all the events, just captures what we need to capture, holds that in memory. And then at the end of the request, after it's been sent to, like after the response has been delivered to your user, in the terminating kind of phase, that's when we send the event data to the Nightwatch agent, and the Nightwatch agent runs locally. So there's no outgoing request across the internet. It's really, really fast, just sends it locally to the agent. And then the agent buffers those up in its memory and sends them to us every 10 seconds or 6 megabytes, whichever comes first.
Awesome. I love it. And then is there any way to create a status page for my SaaS using Nightwatch? And is there any plan for providing an API? You kind of already mentioned like maybe down the road might be options of being able to ingest Nightwatch data or have an API for that. But status page, have you ever thought about that?
We have thought about stuff like that and things like uptime monitoring. At the moment, like, I guess like because we don't have uptime monitoring, a status page maybe doesn't kind of give you everything you'd want out of a status page yet. But it's definitely something we could certainly look at. I mean, Laravel has its kind of health check endpoint, like the /up endpoint. So yeah, I guess it depends on, is this a status page for you internally? Is this just a status page for your users? But yeah, definitely something we can explore. And then plans for an API, I would love to. I love APIs. I love the ability to like expose that information so people can come up with all sorts of interesting use cases that, you know, we didn't think of or that don't make sense to be in the core product. So I'd love to see it. We just figure out, you know, what makes sense and all that sort of stuff, and kind of fit it into all the other stuff we've got planned as well.
Awesome. And then one or two more questions from the comments before we go back into the Reddit questions. But will we be able to manually tag or name requests instead of /API/GraphQL request? We can give it the query name.
Query name. Interesting. Maybe. I can think of some ways we could potentially allow this. Yeah, leave that one with me. But yeah, maybe.
There you go. You never know unless you ask, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Can you explain sampling? If I just use your default 0.1, should I increase it? And I guess a good question with that is, why is the default 0.1? What does sampling do? We can get give us a 30-second overview of what sampling is and why we should use it.
So sampling basically creates like it makes it so that you don't record every single request or every single event. So a sample rate of 0.1 is 10%. So only 10% of your requests would actually get captured and recorded. The reason you would want to do this is to save your like event quota, right? If you've got a high traffic application, but you don't want to pay for, you know, billions of events, then the only option is to not capture all of those events. If you don't have sampling, then you might blow through your events really quickly. If you enable sampling, you can kind of spread it out across the month. So you'll capture the same amount of events, but at least you kind of are capturing from the whole month rather than kind of just capturing 100% for the start of the month and then kind of using them all up. So there's no one size fits all in terms of a sample rate. If you, as a general rule, the more data you have, the lower you can set your sample rate without kind of missing out on like common scenarios that happen. If you have, you know, only 100 requests a day and you set a sample rate of 10%, then you're only going to get 10 of those 100 requests. And you can imagine you're missing out on quite a lot of scenarios that probably happened in there. If you've got billions of requests, then yeah, setting it to even 0.01 or something might make a ton of sense, and you probably still get to know everything you want to know, especially about performance. And if there's an exception that occurs, by default, it will ignore the sample rate, so you'll still get errors. So from a performance perspective, a low sample rate is still going to give you a really good idea of which routes are hitting performance issues and all that sort of stuff.
Awesome. I love it. Perfect. Let's dive into some more Reddit questions. Again, thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Feel free to like and subscribe. And thanks again, Jess, for answering all these questions, not just on the Reddit questions, but we're also answering all of your questions that you're typing in on comments as well. So yeah, thanks so much for everyone for being here. So there's been a bunch of questions, and so we'll kind of try to kill as many birds with one stone as possible. There's always the questions of how does Nightwatch compare to X, Y, or Z tool? And there was a great question and really worded great on the Reddit thread that I thought it would be a great answer to get from you, Jess, specifically, because it looks like in the comments we've gotten a bunch of questions of like, okay, so and so does this, Sentry does this, Flare does this. How does Nightwatch compare, or how is Nightwatch different in a lot of ways? But the Reddit question says there are many other observability tools that have been good actors in the ecosystem, such as Flare, Sentry, Scout, APM, and Honey Badger. And so the follow-up question to that is, let's assume the world is a big, open, and friendly place where there is room for everyone to thrive. And then the full question is, in which case, how do you think about which Laravel apps might suit different subtypes of observability, monitoring, and performance tools? I know that's a lot to kind of put into one point, but
yeah, I do love this question. I do like to think that the world is a big, open, and friendly place, and that there is room for everyone to thrive. And I truly do hope that everyone does thrive. And I think there's room for lots of different solutions. Sometimes I think of it kind of like IDEs, right? There's no like one true IDE that's good for everybody. There's different tools with different strengths, different things that they've kind of focused on, or that is important to them. Like they're all kind of opinionated in their own ways. And so different things will resonate with different people. We've built the tool that we wanted, that we think is best. But yeah, that's, it would be kind of, wrong to say that should be the case. Like everyone should think that about our tool. In terms of like the types, like, as I said, they're all kind of have different opinions. So the one that, fits with your app makes the most sense. Different apps also go deeper on certain areas. Some apps go kind of more wider on different areas. We've tried to go really deep on Laravel specific. So most tools are more generic, will work with a lot of different things. But then when you use it with Laravel or any other app, it's a little bit more generic. We've tried to go really specific for Laravel and make the best possible thing we can for that. And also go a little bit wide in terms of capturing exceptions, performance, and logs all in one platform. Other tools might go really deep on logging, for example. So yeah, it really depends on your app. Play with things, and you can also combine them. We combined Nightwatch and Sentry for a while when Nightwatch was still, in its alpha stages, and we didn't want to lose that sort of stuff. And it works fine. You can combine these tools. So yeah,
that's
great
awesome.
question.
I love it. It looks like that was another one of the Reddit questions. What happens if I use Papertrail and Nightwatch together? I'm not too familiar with Papertrail, but is there too much performance impact? But like you said, it seems like you can use, multiple monitoring solutions at a time. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we're doing that combo actually on Forge. I'm not sure if we still are or not, but yeah, definitely we were using Papertrail. You can turn off Nightwatch as your logging driver if you wanted to. You could use it in addition to. The thing that's great with Nightwatch is the way the data's all kind of connected together. So your logs, you can kind of view your logs, like mixed all together with all the other logs that happen. But any of those logs you can click on and go to the request where that log came from, and then see the full like performance breakdown, the timeline of everything that happened, any exceptions that happened there. If you're on an exception, click through the request. Any logs that happened in that request will be shown on that request page. So all that data is linked together. You don't have to manually kind of map data from multiple systems, match timestamps or trace IDs or anything. It's all just presented there to you, and whichever direction you kind of come into Nightwatch from, you can kind of get to the other sections that are, for that specific type of data.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much for answering those, Jess. I'll give Jess some time to take those answers and put them into Reddit. But yeah, let me take a look at the comments again. If anyone has any questions, we can ask them to Jess and try to get them figured out. Jimmy, we actually answered this earlier. The reason for not being able to delete applications, there wasn't a grand scheme of things. It mostly just it wasn't something that got done before launch. But Jess said that it would probably be out sooner rather than later. in that sense. In terms of being able to, you could archive environments, but not be able to delete applications currently. But it's non-trivial. So I know the team is probably going to get that out soon. A couple questions from the chat, and it looks like we had some Reddit questions about this as well. I believe if I take a look at some of this, there was a question in Reddit, but then we have a question here. Is there an ETA for full Vapor support? And so Lucas, and I'll just answer as well, but there is now a full documentation for on the Nightwatch support docs that talk through how you might be able to set up Vapor using a Forge EC2 server. But yeah,
Yes.
is there an ETA for full Vapor support, or what are you planning around Nightwatch Vapor stuff?
So Vapor's this kind of tricky thing, right? Because it's serverless. The Nightwatch agent needs to be this long-lived process, so that doesn't really fit well with serverless. So you do need some long-running compute instance that can run the Nightwatch agent. So as you said, Josh, we just published documentation on how to do that with like just using Laravel Forge. You can set it up manually as well with any other kind of long-running compute. That's what we've done internally for Cloud. So Cloud runs on Vapor. And so, yeah, we're monitoring Cloud using that exact solution. And we are working on some more kind of first-party support to make that kind of even more easy and seamless.
Awesome. Yeah, and it looks like some folks had asked in Reddit as well, how will Nightwatch support Laravel Vapor, which you kind of just answered that as well. But in terms of needing a long running compute instance, would you say then that is there going to be for the solution within Laravel Vapor within that like EC2 long standing solution within the Nightwatch docs for Vapor? There's probably other hosts such as Heroku and other things that would need long standing solutions as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we want to try and have something that'll cover as many of those scenarios as possible.
Awesome. I love it. Let me see if we are, well, first off, Transcode says, hey guys, thank you, Jess, for the amazing job with Laravel Nightwatch. It's really amazing. And thank you for giving us a free cape. Really important for us. I really appreciate that for my SaaS.
Thank you.
Colette says, if we are testing each PR in separate domains, can we create a separate environment on Nightwatch?
Testing each PR. Oh, okay. There's no way to like programmatically create additional environments, and you'd probably end up with like a lot of noise unless you also tried to clear them up afterwards. I would probably suggest in that scenario, create like an environment in Nightwatch dedicated for those tests. I mean, you could just call it testing potentially. The downside being though that if you've got a bunch of different feature branches that are all kind of running, the data would all kind of get mixed up together. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, the primary use case for Nightwatch is for running in production, and you can put it on staging environments and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I haven't thought of this specific use case if you wanted to like spin up like a ton of different environments programmatically. But yeah, if there's enough demand for it, we could potentially look at adding an API for that.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's see. You kind of already mentioned this, but how can I configure Nightwatch to ignore health check requests that hit my target group every minute? So you kind of mentioned that there is route capability coming soon. Would that solve this?
100%. Yeah, we actually have the same problem ourselves. Our up endpoint gets smashed, and yeah, we want to ignore that one. So yeah, we are working on that as we speak.
Awesome. I love it. And then Marco says, Legend says that everything we asked will get implemented tonight by Jess alone. So yeah.
Definitely not be alone. I have a very incredible team that helps with all of this stuff, and yeah, full credit to them.
Osama, glad to have you here. Mohammed, hi from Morocco, glad to have you here. And then Genuel, good morning from the Philippines, glad to have you here. We probably have around 15 minutes left in the stream. We don't want to take it too long and take up too much of Jess's time. So we'll try to get through as many of your questions in the chat, as well as continuing to dig through all these Reddit questions in the AMA. But if you are someone and you asked a question in the Reddit AMA, Jess is going to be answering them or pasting in or answering them in the comments of those Reddit AMA, even if we don't get it to on this live stream as well. One more question from the chat, and then we'll go back to the Reddit. Will it be possible to create teams within organizations such you'd be able to grant access to a specific set of applications? You kind of already mentioned different permissions. Maybe in the future, what does this look like?
Yeah, I think we definitely have talked about that. It gets kind of confusing when you end up with like all these different layers of hierarchy. And then if you've got permissions at different levels, you've got like this kind of inheritance of permissions, all those sorts of different things. So yeah, we want to probably expand on what we've got. So just to kind of recap, you can create multiple organizations and have applications within organizations, and people can belong to those organizations individually. But at the moment, if you belong to an organization, then you can see all of the applications within there. There are two roles. You can be an admin or a collaborator, which really just impacts whether you can just see the data and issues or whether you can go into the settings and invite people and all those sorts of things. But yeah, we'll probably look at expanding on some of those things as they become kind of, stuff people ask about more and more often.
Perfect. I love it. Let's go back to some of the questions in the Reddit. So the first question I have here is, can we set thresholds for receiving error alerts? So it looks like the question is, for example, excuse me, I'd like to notify the on-call team if the app raises a certain number of errors per minute or hour, and so on.
Yeah, interesting. So we don't currently have anything that can like kind of customize like that errors like over time and set a threshold on that. It's something we'll probably look at expanding on, being able to kind of customize those things, but yeah, not currently. But yeah, I think like it makes a lot of sense as well to even be able to say that when, it hits this amount, it's an email notification, but then if it gets to this amount, it, goes to PagerDuty or something to wake people up. So yeah, I want to try and allow for all those scenarios.
Yeah, it looks like we have quite a few other questions in the Reddit thread about similar like notifications, like will Nightwatch support alarms or other triggers to inform people when nightly activity isn't behaving as expected? For example, if exceptions spike above a certain time limit, a certain percentage or fixed limit, email and or text specific individuals about it.
Yeah, so same sort of question as the last one. Yeah, definitely want to try and support some of those scenarios. At the moment, even like if one exception occurs, we kind of we want to know about it. But I can imagine there's definitely lots of cases where if there's some happening, that's fine. If there's a lot happening, then you want to kind of increase the severity. So yeah, definitely something to look into and improve.
Perfect. Yeah, awesome. I'll let Jess copy or put those answers in the Reddit thread. But yeah, let me take a look at the chat again. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Hello, Salo from Brazil. Glad to have you here. Joni from LinkedIn. Glad to have you here. Apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. And then looks like we have Josh Hanley asking a question.
Hey, Josh.
As well.
I know Josh.
Yeah, the Josh Hanley.
Hey,
Josh
Hanley.
And Jess. Not sure if this has been asked yet, but is there a way to filter out requests? I have a bunch of requests from Dear for uptime monitoring that I'd love to filter out. We just kind of mentioned this, but specifically for routes, but also
so this would be because OD is going to hit all of your endpoints, right? I think our filtering approach will still allow this as long as there's some way you can determine that it came from ODIR. maybe like its user agent or something along those lines.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the other use cases, if you've got a specific like /up endpoint, like the one that comes with Laravel, being able to just ignore that completely. But if it's more of like a one that hits all of your endpoints, then yeah, we also will have something that can support that as well.
Awesome. I love it. He says, yeah, they have a list of IP addresses.
Ah, nice, cool.
There you go. Boom says it's awesome that Laravel is doing AMAs now. I love the engagement with the community.
I love it
well,
too. It's my favorite thing is just hanging out with the community. In person's the best, but these are fantastic as well. Yeah, it's great to see everybody here. I love it.
Yeah, I love being able to host these as well. It's awesome being able to just see everyone in the chat come through and ask questions and being able to get through it. And we're not making it easy on Jess. I feel like we've asked a bunch of questions and we still have a whole lot more to go. So we're probably not going to get through everything, but that's okay. It's been a fun time so far. Let's dive back in. There seems to be a bunch of questions, again, kind of regarding to like notifications in Reddit or from the Reddit AMA regarding notifications. Are you planning to support Telegram or Slack notifications? So I've seen a bunch of questions about Slack notifications pop up as well. Getting alerts straight into our team chats would be awesome.
Yeah, so I think the first thing we want to make sure we have is the ability to just hit a webhook endpoint when something happens, and then you can really customize it to do anything you want, and then add some more like out of the box kind of first party ones for things like Slack as well. So yeah, those are definitely on the radar. I think the webhook one though to me is the most exciting because then you could hook it up with anything you want.
That is exciting because then you kind of almost put it on like you put the onus on whoever wants to do with that whatever you please. You could make your own Slack notifications or even text notifications at that point in a lot of ways too.
Exactly, yeah. Like it's nice to have kind of more first party ones that are really, kind of just guide you through it, really kind of easy ones. The webhook ones kind of sometimes you've got to go and dig through things a bit more to figure out how to wire it all up. So having both is obviously ideal, but yeah, webhooks just give you the most amount of freedom.
I love it. I'm curious how the webhook details would look like. Would you be able to see severity of the request or notification and like all the details? I'm curious of like how much routing you might be able to do within that webhook event to then send to, oh, this is a Slack notification versus text or something.
Yeah. We'd probably send through, like, it depends if it's an error or a performance related issue. If it's performance, you can probably send through like the threshold and the duration that it crossed. Yeah. What about for exceptions? The severity at the moment is controlled like on the issue level by users. At some point, you might look at having like kind of Nightwatch's ranking of the severity as well. So we can kind of like automatically increase severities maybe. But at the moment, it's kind of up to the user to decide, is this like a severe issue? Is this a high priority? So yeah, it's more of a priority, I suppose. But yeah, definitely things we can look at and try and put as much information into the webhook as possible.
Awesome. Perfect. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like those were biggest notifications questions within the last like 7 minutes. If you have any questions that you'd like Jess to answer before we tune off or what's the phrase, turn off or phase out, I don't know what the phrase is that I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of like the radio phrase when you're like we're gonna log off, but it's not log off.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, I don't know what it is.
I know what you mean, but I also yeah,
because it's like tune in, but I don't think it's tune out. I think there's some other one. I'll ask AI for something. But there's a bunch of great questions around in the Reddit around kind of your process for implementing Laravel Nightwatch. There it is.
James got it. Sign off.
There it is. Before we sign off.
James is our infrastructure engineer. He's the one that's responsible for getting all the data through all the pipes into the right spots.
There you go. I love it. There was a couple of questions in the Reddit AMA talking specifically about kind of like what your thoughts were and how to like how approaching building Laravel Nightwatch was. So I wanted to get your thoughts to kind of like riff on for a little bit. One of the questions was, what was the biggest engineering hurdle? And what was the most complex part of the system to get right? What was the biggest engineering hurdle and most complex part of the system to get right?
I think with Nightwatch, all of these sorts of questions generally come down to the sheer volume of data that goes through the system. That's where I think all of the challenges kind of originate from. So that's like all the way from collecting it from your application. We had a fair bit of experience building Pulse to do that, but we had things have to work a little bit differently with Nightwatch because we had to get it into our system. So yeah, the agent, all those sorts of things, and then just getting the data into our database and then being able to query that data performantly as well to show real-time dashboards. So quite a lot of challenges that all kind of relate to the same core problem of just and also having data from so many different applications. Like it's one thing to kind of build this for your own one application, because Pulse was always monitoring like just one application, whereas to have like hundreds of thousands of applications being monitored by Nightwatch, that's a lot of data. If one person gets a flood, like a DOS attack, then that's a ton of extra information that becomes our information as well. So yeah, that's what they all kind of revolved around. So we did a lot of experiments, a lot of proof of concepts, a lot of stress testing. Tim and I did some really early kind of proof of concepts that seemed to work, but there were infrastructure things that were just so far outside of our kind of wheelhouse of expertise. That's when we brought in, people that know that stuff deeply and intimately, like James, to help us actually make that side of things resilient, and then we can focus on like the PHP side of the rest of it. So yeah.
Perfect. I love that answer. And it seems like in the Reddit there was a couple of questions similar to like in terms of Pulse, because I know that so you were one of the people who built Pulse, and Nightwatch maybe is to some seems like a competitor. Maybe it's some people it might seem like a competitor, or maybe even just a successor in a lot of ways. But there was questions of is what's happening with Pulse, or is there going to be any kind of dashboard customization maybe at the same level of Pulse, in terms of showing more limited predefined built-in reports?
Sure. So Pulse is still going strong. Pulse is fantastic. Really, really proud of what we built on that. Nightwatch really is, I guess, like an evolution of Pulse. It kind of took over from where the limitations of Pulse are of using like your own application database, MySQL or Postgres, using those for analytical data. We made it work, but it had so many limitations in terms of being able to link data together and click into individual requests. Pulse was only able to store, or is only able to store, like high-level aggregated data, and not be able to kind of drill in. Telescope, on the other hand, can drill into that individual data, but it doesn't do the high-level aggregation, again, because using those like transactional databases, the ones that aren't OLAP, the OLTP databases, just aren't suitable for that type of information. So that's kind of where Nightwatch was born, was like, what could we do if we didn't have those limitations, if we used specific tools for this specific infrastructure. So that's kind of, that's where Nightwatch came from, but Pulse isn't going anywhere. Pulse is fantastic for self-hosting and can give you that kind of dashboard. Because it is self-hosted and it's, uses Livewire, you can customize the dashboard. You can build your own custom cards. There's a lot of things you could do there that just aren't really possible with a platform like Nightwatch. But in terms of like dashboard customization, I think it would be really cool to add the ability to choose what cards show up on your dashboard and where they show up, and maybe different variations of the cards. So I can see that is on the cards, to do that at some point, and just improve that even.
Yeah, no, that I definitely agree. And one of the things that I've someone actually had told me that they're using Pulse specifically for like their TV dashboard, like in their office, because like that's the perfect see of like, oh, we just want to see everything at a glance. And for the most part, you probably wouldn't want to use Nightwatch for that because it might be you kind of want to see everything at a glance as well. So it's nice to be able to know you can kind of see both at the same time,
Yeah.
or use both at the same time, I should say.
Yep.
Awesome. We have a couple more questions before we sign off. That James mentioned. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining, and thanks again, Jess, for answering all those questions on Reddit as well as in here. We have some love and appreciation, so we appreciate your hard work, Jess, and the Nightwatch team building such an incredible piece of software.
Thank you.
You kind of already mentioned this, but does Nightwatch have any plans in the future for front end monitoring?
Yes, definitely planned. Yeah.
We've talked about a few upcoming features. Will a roadmap of near-term features be published?
Probably not published. There's things will probably, leak out in conversations about different ideas, but we do like to try and keep some things, close to the chest.
Yeah.
And yeah, once you put it out as a roadmap, then it gets a little bit kind of harder to, if things don't make sense later on, to kind of walk those back, I guess. But we're really open to all sorts of stuff. We're kind of letting the users as well help drive a lot of this now. We've kind of put out our V1 of like what we think and is like the most important things to launch with. But now we really want to kind of have that more collaborative thing where people tell us what they really need and let that kind of drive it. I have a wish list document of all the things I want to see in Nightwatch. And I think a lot of those things are pretty exciting. And there's some things people have asked for, some things that people haven't asked for, but I think we'll really love them once they have them.
I love it. I guess a follow-up question to that. That's a great way to kind of round this out, is what's the best way to stay up to date on new features as they're released, or even just maybe new things planning on coming into Nightwatch? What would you say to that?
I mean, I guess all the usual channels. So yeah, like Twitter and all those sorts of places, YouTube, and then we have like a newsletter, right? Like we send out newsletters. I don't know where you join that. I should know where you join that, but yeah, all those sorts of places, and obviously Laracons as well. That'll often be probably when bigger things get announced. Laravel News will probably cover a lot of those sorts of things as well. So yeah.
Awesome. So does that mean you will be announcing or planning on announcing some exciting things at Laracon US this year?
Probably not Laracon US. I mean, maybe, like, we'll see what we've kind of got cooking. But we just straight off the back of the launch. So yeah, there'll be a lot of like fast follows that we'll probably summarize at Laracon as well. But I don't think we'll kind of hold anything back until then. But yeah, I'm keen to see where we are by like Laracon AU.
Yeah.
That gives us that little bit of extra time. But yeah, we're still kind of in that like post-launch kind of fog of just, like, I can't believe we actually did this. And that whole like that race to the finish line, and then you get there and it's like, okay, what do we focus on now? Like we have this list of stuff we want to do, but now we've got other people asking for stuff, and yeah, so we're just regrouping a little bit after all that and figuring out our best path forward.
I love it. Well, Josh says congrats on the launch and amazing
Thanks,
work
Josh.
you've done with it. But yeah, thank you all so much in the chat for hanging around, for sticking around, as well as just asking all the questions. If we didn't get to your question, reach out via, I guess you can ask it via Twitter or maybe on the Reddit AMA, and maybe Jess will still be able to find it and answer that as well. But we try to answer as many questions as possible. But thank you again, Jess, for being here and for doing this with us, as well as for answering all of those Reddit questions as well. But yeah, anything else that you'd like to say, Jess?
No, I mean, thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you everyone for trying Nightwatch out. Thank you, Josh, for hosting this awesome event. So yeah, go sign up, go try it. You can start for free. Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
And
this
let us
says,
know like what Nightwatch does. There's been so many people have reached out and said, you know, this, I found this thing that has been there for ages. I didn't know about it. Nightwatch told me about it. Pictures of people's graphs, whereas like, you know, like the performance, they fix something that Nightwatch told them, and then the graph, like the performance just goes like real good afterwards. All that sort of stuff. Love seeing all of that. So keep sharing all of those things.
yep, definitely. We love seeing that. So post it on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you are in, or at, and we definitely, and tag us and tag Laravel, and we'll make sure to see that, because we love seeing that. We love sharing it internally with all of our team, and just getting to give kudos to the Nightwatch team as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you all so much for being here, and keep an eye out for the things that are coming next, not just on the Laravel channel. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be up to date on the things that are coming out, on up to date stuff with Laravel, with Nightwatch, and coming up next is probably Laracon US is the next big event that we're excited to go for. But yeah, thank you so much. And now I think this is us signing off. So thank you again, Jess. Thank you everyone out there.
Thanks everyone.